What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. What's going on, everybody? Once again, my name is Steven Hyder, and this is Gate City Sports Channel. If you are new to this channel, guys, if I can ask you to do a huge favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. You have no clue how much that helps. It helps grow the channel. It keeps us motivated to keep pushing out content, and you know what? It builds an Eagles community, guys. All right, all my OGs, you already know what I'm going to ask you to do. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that like button. That's how we communicate with YouTube, to let YouTube to know to go ahead and push this content out across the platform. All right, y'all. Today's topic, we're rounding out our discussion about the cornerback situation in Philadelphia, but I'm going to take it a little broader today, and I'm going to talk about the secondary in general. So today's topic, guys, I'm going to talk about what do we do? What moves can we make? Who do I think might be the better fits to actually resolve some of the issues in the secondary? Of course, you guys know I'll give you guys some advanced analytics on why I'm thinking what I'm thinking, so that's what's coming up, guys. How do we resolve the secondary issue?
Talk about the cornerback position today. An interesting position group here for the Eagles because they've got a lot of very young
guys. So before we can talk about the free agent pool and all that stuff kind of coming up and how we can add pieces to this team, I think it would do us some good to talk about who are the four guys under contract at the cornerback position. Because right now we got two guys that have primarily played on the outside and two guys that have primarily played on the inside in the slot who are coming back and returning. Now, I've heard it reported incorrectly that Craig James is signed underneath contract. No, he's not. That's an incorrect reporting on the part of one of these Eagles content creators. That's not. They're wrong. He's not. I'm not saying Craig James will or won't be back, but he's not underneath contract right now. So at the end of the video, if you guys like, I can, if there's enough time left, if this hasn't gone too long, I can take a look at Craig James for you guys. But let's talk about the four guys we know. Let's start off with just their physical attributes of who they are. All right. Three of these guys, from my calculations, are 24. One of them is 25. So Cravon LeBlanc is the one who's 25. The other three guys, Rasul Douglas, Sidney Jones, Avonte Maddox, are all 24. So let's start with Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas runs about 6'2", 209 pounds. Big bodied guy. He has 32 3/8 inch arms, so he's definitely a little bit more lankier than everybody else that's on this list. And he runs about a 4.59 40, so he's definitely one of the slower guys on this. He's not the slowest, believe it or not, in terms of his 40 time. He's not the slowest. And he has a 3-cone drill of about 6.97. His vertical jump is 33.5. To be honest with you, when you really study Rasul Douglas's numbers, I see why so many people think he's honestly more of a slot guy, a taller slot corner, or a safety. He has the numbers, the attributes that you would see inside, not outside. But at least playing on the outside, as long as he's played, at least he's become very versatile. So he's a guy that I could see the Eagles wising up to eventually, moving him to free safety and then having him play down inside the slot every now and then, moving him outside. Like, he's got some Malcolm Jenkins to his game. We'll have to see if they ever smarten themselves up and realize what this kid is. Okay, the next kid I want to go over is Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones goes about 6 foot, 186 pounds. He's got 31.5 inch arms. All right. He runs a 4.47 40. I don't know how accurate that timing is. It's what he clocked in at the combine. But I think he might have been dealing with some stuff because this kid's a lot faster when we watch him on the field than a 4.47. So I'm not sure if maybe he was dealing with some injuries during that time. I mean, obviously, he ended up rupturing his Achilles when he had his pro day, so maybe he was dealing with some stuff before that. He ran a 7.02 3-cone. He was actually the slowest among all the players at the 3-cone, but he had a 33.5 inch vertical. The kid, he's fairly athletic. We know that about Sidney Jones. This is an athletic kid. However, Avonte Maddox is by far the most athletic football player on this football team, at the corner position at least. In the secondary, I would say. He's 5'9", 184 pounds. He's winning it for all the small guys out there. He's got 29.5 inch arms. He's got those T-Rex arms, guys. All right. He runs a 4.39 40. This kid can run. This kid's got feet. He's got a 6.51 3-cone. Guys, that is fast. This boy is fast, guys. not only is he fast vertically, he's fast horizontally as well. This kid has got a very good, range of motion where he can shift and move and change speeds and change direction quickly. The kid has a 37-inch vertical. It's by far the highest vertical of any of these guys. He can elevate, guys. He can definitely get up there and elevate. At the end of the day, he's damn near jumping with basically Rasul Douglas. Like, not quite there, factoring in Rasul Douglas's height, but he's damn near there. All right. To the guy that I think might be the most experienced and the most veteran presence right now on this football team, kind of, between him and Rasul Douglas, is Cravon LeBlanc. And Cravon is not quite as athletic when he did his measurements as I thought he would be. But look, the kid can play. I mean, whether or not he measures well or not, the kid plays well in games. That's all that really matters in the end. He's 5'10", 185 pounds. He's got 29.5-inch arms. He's got those, T-Rex arms again. He ran a 4.65 40. That surprised me. I thought he was faster than a 4.65. I mean, he's slower than Rasul Douglas in vertical speed. His 3-cone was 6.92, so he does have pretty decent change of direction, which probably makes him that's probably why he's very good playing in the nickel, even though he doesn't have that elite vertical speed. He can change direction pretty quickly. And he's got a 34-inch vertical, so clearly him and Avonte Maddox can elevate higher than the other corners, but obviously, you got to factor in Rasul's height, and of course, you got to factor in Sidney Jones's height. So, guys, these are the 4 guys we have. This is what their measurements are in terms of their actual physical attributes. Now let's go ahead and let's switch gears and let's throw up and let's just do a real quick rundown of what they're offering in terms of, the measurements in terms of analytics towards what their production has been. And then I'll jump into who's available. Where do we go to upgrade? How does this all kind of tie together? All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's discuss production. Simply put, we got young guys. These are all very young guys. I mean, let's be real, to be honest. Even the guys that are free agents for us, Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, they're still fairly young football players. So this was a very young team, even from last year. Certainly a really young team as it stands right now. So let's jump into it. Why don't we go? I'll start with Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas he played in 48% of snaps. Okay. In those 48% of snaps, his target rate was 22%. I always kind of look for the threshold of 25% or less. That generally tells me that, the ball's being spread around and we don't have a particular player being picked on repeatedly. Routes defended, 250. So, hey, props to Rasul, man. He had the most playing experience out of the guys I'm going to talk about today. And his target separation was 1.15. I kind of talked about that in the last video, guys. I think that's a product somewhat of his lack of ability in man coverages, because he does lack a certain athleticism on the outside. But like I said yesterday, and I showed you guys video clips, hey, from time to time, this guy did kind of emerge and show he does have that kind of ability. I mean, one day, this coaching staff's going to figure out what this kid is, that he needs to be that guy that you move all around, just like Malcolm Jenkins, from safety, down into the slot, out to the outside on occasions. Once they get that together with this kid, I honestly think Rasul Douglas could be a very good football player. All right, let's go over to his counterpart, Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones was in on 35% of snaps. Okay, he had a target rate of 20.5%, 21%, which to me is really good. I mean, these two corners, hey, at least they weren't being picked on and targeted 26, 27, 28% of, the time. The routes defended, 146 for Sidney Jones. So still fairly inexperienced, but he does have at least some game experience now. And his target separation was 1.17. I kind of discussed that. I thought that had a lot to do with Sidney Jones's continual development inside of zone coverages. I mean, the kid doesn't read and react to plays very well yet when it's in zone. I think as he gets more familiar with that, you'll see that target separation window really close in. All right. Avonte Maddox, who's probably the most athletic guy, maybe on the football team, minus Deshaun Jackson. All right. 58% of snaps he played. Played a lot of snaps. All right, so his target rate was 20.3%. He defended 227 routes, and his target separation was 1.60. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little surprised his target separation was 1.6, I think a lot of that has to do with that earlier on in the season. I don't remember what game it was, guys, but I do remember there was a game where we had to move Avonte Maddox outside. We also had to do that playoff game, and we didn't have to do it. We chose to do it. That was a mistake. But if you remember, like he was really getting beat on the outside. I don't think he was ready. I don't think his mind was ready to be on the outside yet. And I think that's contributing to that target separation because there's just no way that kid should have a 1.6 in target separation. This kid is way too athletic for that. I would expect that number to not only come down, but drastically move down. I would expect that his target separation will be around a 1. All right. Cravon LeBlanc. Guys, I had to pull his 2018 numbers because it just would not be fair to pull his 2019 numbers. He didn't play that much this season due to injury. And he only, when you were looking at it, guys, he only had 2 targets, and both of those targets were completed. So you can imagine all the other like metrics that are used to measure him were heavily skewed on 2 targets and 2 receptions. Like I wasn't going to do it. It's not a fair judgment of him. So 2018, he was in on 66.3% of all play snaps. His target rate was 19.3%. Whoa, that's good. Really good. He defended 228 routes, or right around what basically Avonte Maddox defended this season. And his target separation was a 1. So really good. The future's bright here, gentlemen and ladies. The future is bright. I like these 4 kids. All right, I'm going to get into just a few more advanced analytics, and I want to talk open and candidly about these 4 individuals. The more and more I looked into the advanced analytics on these guys, I watched more film on these young guys. I got to be honest with you. You know what? We might have done a lot better job of what people think at identifying corner talent. It just may have taken a heck of a lot longer than any of us wanted for these guys to develop, which is not excusable because we took flyers on guys in the second round that had major injuries that maybe we shouldn't have taken those flyers at the second round on. And certainly we had issues at the coaching for taking it this long to develop some of these guys. But nonetheless, it's starting to pay dividends. So let's take a look. All right, let's start with Rasul Douglas again. Burn rate, 12.7%. Like I said, very hard number to put your head around. I don't think his burn rate is quite that high. I think that's one of those nuanced situations to where you're talking about whose responsibility it is in particular coverage schemes. And, if you got a guy running a post route and they run the ball right between the hashes, they throw the ball right between the hashes and you're playing a trailing technique, it's going to look like you're giving up more than 5 yards of separation. So I do think there's a little nuance to that stat, but look, it doesn't matter. I mean, when you really looked at it at the end, when you get to the coverage rating, the way they analyze it, I think they made up for it with the way they analyzed it through the coverage rating. So his catch rate, 52.7%. Rasul Douglas fought for the football, and that's a theme you're going to see with all 4 of these guys. They fought for the football. Passer rating, 112. Of course, we want that passer rating to come down. I think a lot of this might have to do with Rasul being used a little too much on the outside in man coverage situations. I think if you give this guy more of an off coverage on the outside, play him up and press on the inside, play him at some safety, move him up like a Malcolm Jenkins into that linebacker box, like make him a Swiss Army knife. I think this kid's got a future here. All right, let's talk about Sidney Jones, guys. Burn rate, 0%. He did not give up any plays last year where there was 5 yards or more of separation. His catch rate, 43.3%. Boy, it was hard to get a catch on Sidney Jones. The kid was not playing around. You better dump the ball off on a 1 yard, little dump off route when he's 10 yards and off coverage. Passer rating, 85.7. Kid was playing good. It's undeniable when you see this, when you see the advanced analytics on it. Coverage rating, plus 60.3. It's a stud, man. That's a straight stud. All right, Avonte Maddox. Burn rate, 0%. Didn't give up a single play where there was more than 5, greater than 5 yards of separation. Not one play occurred like that with him. His catch rate was 52.2%. Once again, just like Rasul and just like Sidney Jones, he fought for the football. He fought to try to get that football away from receivers. Passer rating, 78.6. That's a phenomenal statistic, guys. 78.6 means you're putting in work, man. Coverage rating, positive 38.9. Considering he basically played with Rasul Douglas the most amount of snaps, the fact that they're still plus 30s indicates they played really well. Cravion LeBlanc, I have to go with his 2018 stats, guys. It would not be fair to do his 2019 stats because he only had 2 targets, and it would make all these stats look ridiculously stupid. So if you go back to 2018, his burn rate 0%. Not one receiver got greater than 5 yards distance from him. His catch rate 59.1%. He fought for the ball, but admittedly, I'd like to see that number come down a little bit. His passer rating was 90.5. Pretty good. It's respectable, right? And his coverage rating was a plus 10.8. He was in the positive. Like, he played a lot, downs that season. Like, I'm comfortable with him. I mean, if Cre'Von LeBlanc has got your lowest coverage rating out of the guys you have active on your roster right now, that's a positive. I'll take that every time, guys. I'll take that every time, hands down. Now, let me get into my concerns kind of with all 4 of these guys. All right, let me break this down into what the concerns are. Let's talk about the safety position, and then let's talk about adding talent to this roster. Addressing the concerns, guys. I'll admit, it is a risk to go into this upcoming season with guys who now have a little bit of experience, but there's still a lot of uncertainty about them. Like, it's taking a gamble here. But let's be honest. If you're going to win, you got to take gambles. So let's begin with Rasul Douglas because that's where we've been getting the entire time. My concerns with Rasul Douglas come down to athleticism and his coaching staff's insistence on putting him in man press, coverage on the outside. I thought that he did develop a little bit. I thought he looked a lot better at the end of the year playing man press, both outside and inside. I feel a lot more comfortable with him in a man press on the inside now compared to outside. I think outside he showed a little bit more. But let's be real. There are certain players, if he tries to play man press on, are going to leave him in the dust if he doesn't get his hands on them. And that's the thing. If you're going to play man press and you're not the fastest guy, you better be able to disrupt the route. And I don't see him being able to use his hands to disrupt the route early enough. So I am concerned about a guy that runs a 4.59 40 playing outside. Like, to me, that's not an outside corner. That's an inside or a safety, not an outside corner. And I'm not saying the Eagles are the only team in the league to do this. I mean, you got Daryl Worley out there in Oakland, Jalen Mills on our own team. Like, we're not the only team that runs these slower corners, but I think you got to move back down towards a 4.5 to play outside, guys. You got to be in the 4.5 range or below. All right, let's go to Sidney Jones. My concern with Sidney Jones comes down to dependability. So, look, this guy came off of a major injury when we drafted him. He followed that up by being injured again, and he followed that up this year by, nagging hamstring injuries before he got everything together. When he got everything together, we saw in man press, this dude's a stud. This dude is a stud in man coverage. But we still see there's a lot of development that Sidney Jones needs to go through in zone coverage. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this kid you could throw in a zone concept and feel confident right away. We need to build this young man's confidence and make him a complete, more all-around type cornerback. All right. Avonte Maddox. Guys, there's not a whole lot to feel concerned about Avonte Maddox. I mean, he did concern me a little bit about his size and fit playing on the outside. There were a couple games early in the year where we had to place him on the outside and it didn't look good. And then, the coaching staff tried to get a little too cute in the playoff game. And instead of playing Sidney Jones matched up on a guy like, DK Metcalf, they tried to go with the faster, more athletic player in Avonte Maddox. And I'm sorry, but DK Metcalf has like a 40-some inch vertical, and he's like 6 foot, God knows how tall. 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", I don't know. Kid's tall. Like, it's a complete mismatch. It was a bad idea. Size and fit with the way the coaching staff tries to use Avonte Maddox at times become my concern with him. And none of these are necessarily his own fault. All right, if you get down to a guy like Cre'Von LeBlanc, health. He's coming off that Liz Frank. I thought he looked pretty good late in the season. I thought the coaching staff started to become much more reliant on Cre'Von LeBlanc playing. But he wasn't himself. He only had 2 targets thrown against him. We need to see Cre'Von be Cre'Von again. Like, keep getting healthier. Use this time to get that body in shape. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. As I looked at his physical numbers, he's not the most athletic guy. What tells me something about Cre'Von LeBlanc is if you're running a 40 time that's slower than Rasul Douglas, a 40 time that is probably in line, no, it's slower actually than Jalen Mills, and you have as tight of coverage as he's had, a 1 in the separation category, This kid is a very instinctful player. It means this kid plays off of instincts very well. He can read the coverage. He can read the route tree. He can read the quarterback very well. Like that's but I mean, at the end of the day, it does concern you that an athletic enough guy could really make him burnt toast with a 4.65 40. But Craven LeBlanc's a fighter, man. If there's any guy I got faith in, it's this dude. But these are my concerns about these guys. So now let's talk about what is going on at safety. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty of how do we improve this team. So let's take a look at safety and talk about improving the football team. As the roster currently stands, guys, we have 3 safeties that are under contract. We have Malcolm Jenkins, who, ironically, we all know is fighting for a contract and wants a little more money. So a lot of uncertainty there. We have Marcus Epps, who's under contract until 2022. This is a guy I think that the Eagles organization is high on. From my perspective, I've seen coming from them. They look like they're high on this kid, but I ain't too sure they're ready to give this kid the second, safety role. I think they're more comfortable with this kid as the third or your fourth option. And then we have Rudy Ford, who played the role as the third, safety, was supposed to be a special teams ace. There's been a little question about how good Rudy Ford even was on special teams. I mean, I think you got to give the kid a full season to really judge that. But those are your, and he's under contract until 2020, the end of this upcoming year, 2020. So those are your 3 safeties under contract. I want to talk about in-house solutions first. I think the number one option we could do is we could bring back the Green Goblin, a Philadelphia favorite. I mean, we love this guy. We love the attitude. We love the energy that Jalen Mills brings. And look, this isn't some far-fetched, like weird fan conspiracy thing about moving Jalen Mills to safety. I mean, the guy has prior playing experience at free safety. I don't get why the Eagles were the only team looking at this young man and thinking outside corner when everyone else in the league said inside in the nickel or out at safety. We were one of the few teams out here like, oh no, he's going to be a great outside corner with 4.62 40 speed. So I think the number one thing we could try to do is try to repair, not even really repair. I think the relationship is great with Jalen Mills, but try to find a way of keeping this young man in Philly by re-signing him as a free safety. Will there be challenges to that? Yes, I don't think safety pay is quite as high as corner play, so that could cause some tension there. And we know that Detroit is interested in this young man. So we might have to fight with that. All right, second option. If for some reason we can't get Jalen Mills back, we could always just go ahead and move a guy who maybe doesn't have as much experience playing as safety, but he's got the physical traits you look at for a safety, 6'2", 209 pounds, right? He comes up and he'll stick a runner. I think he's very much like a Malcolm Jenkins to where he feels the field very well. He can play inside. He does have some capabilities on certain, times to play outside, especially in off-man coverage outside. He can definitely come up in the linebacker box. Like, next option to me would be to move Rasul Douglas. Okay, keeping it going. There's always the outside chance that the Eagles will look at Avonte Maddox, look at the fact that he could have that range of motion at 4.39 40 to really get across the field everywhere, and it could move him back to safety again. Obviously, Avonte Maddox's rookie season played a little safety. Shocked us all. He's a small guy, 5'9", 184 pounds. He's not the guy you envision playing safety. And that would lie the worry, right? That we don't want this guy getting himself killed out there. But it's not that far-fetched to move Avonte Maddox. So moving any 3 of these guys does one thing for the Eagles. It allows us to spend all of our resources, possibly in free agency in the draft, on corner for the secondary instead of having to worry about safety with like this deep, pit of fear in our chest. If we are going to walk away from the current situation we're in at safety, if we are going to not make any kind of internal promotions at safety here, like I just discussed before, and we have to go to the free agency market, there are a few guys I think are actually really good football players that will be available. And I'll be honest with you, the first guy I'm targeting, if I'm the Eagles personally, Clinton-Dix. If Chicago allows this guy to hit free agency, they're stupid. I would be all over Clinton-Dix if I was the Eagles. That would be my first target. If he's allowed to hit free agency, I would go after him. The second guy I would go after, if the Carolina Panthers can't come to an agreement and can't work something out with Trey Boston before free agency, I'm going to target Trey Boston if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. Trey Boston, he's been around the league a little bit, but he's still a young guy. He's got pretty good range. He's, got a little physicality to him. He's not the most physical guy, but he's got some physicality to him. Like, I would go for Trey Burton next. The third guy I would go after if I was the Philadelphia Eagles, if you're trying to go maybe slightly cheaper, but get a guy who's got some game experience, get a guy who can, make a play on the football. I would go after Denver Broncos safety Justin Simmons. I would go hard for Justin Simmons if I was the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll give you my under the radar guy. He's playing in the Super Bowl. I don't know how the Kansas City Chiefs feel about this guy. They moved him late in the season to free safety. I think he's played really, really well at free safety, guys. And I think they show the blueprint for this young man's career. If I was the Eagles, one of the under the radar moves you can make that would probably really make this team drastically better and give you a guy who's got a lot of range at safety would be Kendall Fuller of the Kansas City Chiefs. I would go after him. Hell, I'll give you even one guy that's, another unconventional thinking thing, but he's a guy who's made a lot of plays. He's coming out of a very good system, and that's the Minnesota Vikings' Anthony Harris. He's generally speaking a strong safety, but I think the guy has the range and the ability to play free. I would go get him. I mean, all these guys are not over the hill. These are all somewhat younger guys. They still got a good 3 to 4 or 5 years of football left in them. They're going to make it through that contract length, and they're going to be good players for the Eagles. I would roll the dice on those players. Preferably, I'd like to figure it out with, Jalen Mills or maybe move Rasul Douglas. But if that falls through, there are a lot of options. I won't lie. Now, I want to give you guys some slight opinion here on what I would do at the cornerback position. Okay. Like I said, I would try to keep as many eggs as my best as I could at corner compared to anything else. So if we're going to attack free agency at the cornerback position, there are a few guys I like in particular at corner, and I want to get into that now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 cornerbacks in this free agency class that have really caught my attention, especially when I looked at some film on them. I broke down some of the analytics on them. I was like, okay, like there's something here. Like these are good football players. Cornerback number 1 that's caught my attention is Byron Jones. Guys, I know the arguments, oh, he's a Cowboy fan. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go down that avenue because this is a different situation than Orlando Scandrick. You can't rule out people because they played for another team before. That's how losers think. I'm not one of those. Orlando Scandrick was at the end of his career, had been a part of that organization for, over 10 years, guys? Some crazy crap like that. Like, it's a completely different scenario. This is a guy coming into the prime of his career that if Dallas doesn't re-sign, they've made a conscious decision they don't want him to be a part of their future. There's going to be some hurt feelings there. This is a whole different avenue compared to what's going on with Orlando Scandrick. So, his snap share, 81.1% of plays. All right. His target rate, 15.9%. Pretty good. It's pretty good there, guys. Routes defended, 433, or about 29 a game. And his target separation was 1.03. One of the other things that really stood out to me about Byron Jones is just a simple combination of height and speed. 6'1" guy goes about 200 some pounds, and the guy runs like a 4.36 40. Like, that's impressive. That's the kind of speed that it's hard to find in this league at that height and weight. So he caught my attention with these, stat lines, and I'm not done. This is just part 1 of this. So the second corner that caught my attention was James Bradberry. James Bradberry, another guy, he's like 6'2", 215 pounds. The guy's got like 33-inch arms. Like, for a big dude that's like 6'2", and like I want to say he's pretty close to 212, 215-ish, something like that, guys. Like, this dude ran a 4.5 40. Like, that's good speed for an outside corner that height and that kind of frame. Like, he's got physical gifts just like Byron Jones that make you pay attention. So his snap share was 90.5% of plays. His target rate was 24.5%. His routes defended was 437, so about 31 a game. And his target separation was 0.92. Pretty impressive. All right, the third cornerback that really caught my attention, guys, in the free agency class is no other than Dez Denard. This kid is He's a good football player, guys. 63% of snap shares, 25.9% target rate. He defended 166 routes, or roughly 21 a game, and his target separation was .60. He's not a big dude. He's like 5'11-ish, but he's solid and he's very sticky with receivers. I liked what I saw from him on film. And I like the fact that he's got versatility to play inside and outside. It's a pretty nice thing to have from a corner. All right. My third guy's a little more under the radar. It's Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson's another guy that's got pretty ideal size. He's like that 6'1" range, somewhere in that area, guys. His snap share was 25.8%. His target rate was 23.6%. His routes defended were 161, or roughly 11 a game. Obviously, he played in more games than Denard. That's why that figure has that difference there. And his target separation was a 1. So he held in there. He held his own, just like all these other guys we see on here. These guys have those front line numbers look really good. All right, guys, let's keep digging a little deeper into the production of these corners, and let's get into some more of the, analytics that break down just how well they were playing. So, Byron Jones. Receptions allowed on the season, 33, which averaged out to about 2.2 a game. People were having a hell of a time getting open on this guy and getting catches. Receiving yards, 351, which averaged out to about 23.4. Guys, that's a very impressive stat for a guy who played over 400 snaps on the season, or 400 routes. He defended over 400 routes on the season. I mean, it's ridiculous at 433 that they were only getting 23 yards on him. It's a good stat line, guys. Pass breakup 6, touchdowns 3, interceptions 0. I'm going to get a little further into that stat line, guys. I know a lot of you guys that are trying to give legitimate criticisms of why you're not, in favor of Byron Jones. Not just like, oh, he's a former Dallas Cowboy, but like, hey, like there are some like schematic fit issues with him. I will say this: when you have man press corners, they're not going to have a lot of interceptions, guys, because their back is constantly turned to the quarterback. So it's harder for them to locate the football and actually make a play on it. All right, let's keep going to James Bradberry. Receptions allowed 68, or 4.9 on the season. Receiving yards 709, or 50.6 per game. Pass breakups 11. Touchdowns allowed 1. Interceptions 3. I will say this about Bradberry. It's easy to look at those receptions allowed, look at the receiving yards, and then say like, oh man, like he didn't have as good a year as some of the other corners that you've talked about, before. Keep in mind what division this guy's playing in, guys. He's playing in the NFC South. That means he's playing Michael Thomas, right? He's playing guys like he's playing all the Tampa Bay, Buccaneers receivers, like Mike Evans and them. He's got to play Julio Jones twice a year. Like he's got to play a lot harder, competition as a corner there. So being their number one corner, which he became this season, I mean, that can be misleading for people. All right, Darquez Denard. Receptions allowed 23. I accidentally hit the 9 button, guys. The 9 button is where how you get to the bracket. It's 2.9, not 92.9. 2.9, so about 3 receptions a game. Receiving yards, 207, or roughly about 26 a game. He broke up 4 passes, had no picks, and didn't give up any touchdowns. He played a lot of inside and outside, and he played a lot of press, guys. So once again, back to the quarterback. It's a little harder to break on the ball to make an interception. Okay. Next guy, Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson gave up 19 receptions on the year, or 1.3 a game. He gave up 247 receiving yards, or roughly 17 a game. He broke up 3 passes. He didn't give up any touchdowns, but he didn't have any interceptions either. A lot of these guys are man press corners, guys. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now that Kevin Johnson is kind of an under the radar guy. That he was the second best coverage cornerback in Buffalo. Tre'Davious White's the only one I would probably argue was a little better. Levi Wallace is a good football player, and that's what's holding Kevin Johnson back from getting more playing time there. This is a guy that I really think the Eagles should be targeting. I really think we should be looking into this guy. All right, now we're getting down to what I consider to be probably the more important analytic measurements here. All right, burn rate, 1.4%. 1.4% for Byron Jones. Catch rate allowed, 47.8%. That's impressive to me. Passer rating, 90.1. This is also a pretty impressive stat to me. And his coverage rating was a plus 47.1, which is phenomenal. All right, let's flip it over to James Bradberry. Burn rate, 1.9%. His catch rate allowed was 63.6%. That one does concern me a little bit, but you look at the passer rating is an 86.6, makes me feel a little more comfortable. And his coverage rating being a plus 8.6. Not quite as impressive as Byron Jones, who played a similar snap amount to him. But keep in mind, I will argue that Byron Jones, he played some tough guys. There's some Darius Slaytons, there's some guys in he didn't really have to play Deshaun Jackson and stuff like that in Philadelphia, so he got away with that. But I mean, he did have to match up against Alshon Jeffrey once. He did have to match up against Darius Slayton. He did have to match up against McLaurin. He had to play the guys out of conference, so he had to play other receivers. But I do think that Bradberry had to play the tougher competition within the division twice every year. And Julio Jones, Mike Evans, then you got to play, Michael Thomas. Like, he had to play a lot harder competition. All right, Marquez Denard. Burn rate, 0%. This guy doesn't get beat. Catch rate allowed, 53.5%. Pretty good. Passer rating, 79.2. That's the stat that really made me say, wow, I like Marquez Denard a lot. Like, that's an impressive passer rating to hold your competition to. His coverage rating is a plus 39.5. It's really, really good. All right, moving on. Kevin Johnson. Burn rate, 0%. His catch rate allowed, 50%. His passer rating, 83.3. Positive. It's a very positive stat there, guys. Coverage rating is a plus 40.1. Guys, I feel confident in endorsing all four of these cornerbacks. They've played well. I mean, the advanced analytics show you these are upgrades. These guys will be good additions to the Philadelphia Eagles. But I'm going to give you my final thoughts on these guys in terms of I'm going to give you the final breakdown, what I see from the positives from what I've learned about their analytics, and I'll give you what I've learned in terms of the drawbacks or the negatives from their game film and their analytics. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at what these guys have to offer us, okay, what each player's kind of strength is, all right? I want to start with Byron Jones, all right? Byron Jones' strength, guys, this is a long video. I apologize. I'm struggling at this point. Byron Jones' height and speed combination are very intriguing. So he's 6'1", 199 pounds, guys. He ran at his pro day a 4.3640. So he runs anywhere between like a 4.36 to about a 4.4. You got to keep in mind, guys, that they're a little off sometimes on that ticker. But he's fast for that height and speed combination. It's impressive, man. He's got impressive speed. His target rate was only 15.9%, and he had over 400 routes defended. Guys, people did not want to throw at this kid. That's a lockdown corner. That's the definition of a lockdown corner. It's when people respect you enough that they don't even try to target you. He only gave up 2 receptions per game and about 24 yards per game. He produced. He flat out produced. His catch rate, so the amount of, percentage of catches made when people threw at him, was 47.8%, so under 50%. He won the battle. His passer rating giving up was 90.1. It's pretty good. And his overall coverage rating of a plus 47.1 was number 4 in the league. That's really, really good, guys. This is a bona fide top 5 corner. When you shake it out by the film and you shake it out by the analytics, guys, he's a top 5 cornerback. It can't be argued. It's right in front of your face, guys. It's right there for you to see. He's top 5. So, I know the hesitation, guys. He's a Dallas Cowboy. Man, they signed T.O. at one point. I want to take Byron Jones from their asses. I do. I really do. Guys, let me tell you the alternative. This kid has no connection to Texas. He's a Connecticut kid. He was born and raised in Connecticut. He played college football at Connecticut. Do you really want Bill Belichick getting his damn hands on this kind of talent? Do you know what he would do with this kind of talent? No. I'm telling you, don't sleep on this kid. This kid is good. He's very good. All right. The second guy I want to talk about, guys, is Bradberry, man. Like, James Bradberry I think he's a rising star. This kid's height, I think I said he might have been about 6'2". I think he actually measured in at 6'1", my bad. But 6'1", 6'2"-ish guys, 211, 212 pounds. Look, this guy's arm length is 33 3/8. This kid has very ideal height and length. All right. He runs anywhere between a recorded like 4.45 to a 4.5 40. I tend to stick to what is, combine and pro day say, and that's about 4.5 speed, guys. All right. His target separation was 0.92. It's impressive. He broke up 11 passes, picked off 3 balls. All right. His passer rating giving up was 86.6, which was number 10 in the NFL. I think you can make a legitimate argument that, James Bradbury is emerging as a top 10 cornerback in this league. That's an upper tier cornerback. Yeah, if the price is right, I think the guy not only fits the scheme of off coverage, but he also has ideal length. He's got ideal weight. He's got ideal speed. I don't see what the hesitation would be on this guy unless it's just purely he's got Perry Fuel out there and Buffalo who might want him. He's got this new Panther organization coming up that might want to retain him, and he's got his old head coach out in Washington that might want him. I would like to keep this kid out of the division if that's possible, guys. I don't want this kid signing on the division. That's going to be a pain in the ass to play this kid twice. That's another guy I think that we should legitimately think about targeting. All right, the third guy, Darqueze Dennard. He's like 5'11"-ish guy, he's close to 200 pounds, but he's a scrappy fighter. All right, he fights for the ball, man. His target separation was 0.6. He sticks to receivers, guys. That's pretty good. His burn rate was 0%.